Thing going on in the country. Here is the headline for today's news. Minimum wage. Why we may not accept 100,000 organized labor. NLC President Joe Ajaero. Abuja Organized Labour has told the federal government to perish any thought of offering 100,000 as the minimum new wage. He also asked that the government to be serious with negotiation on the issue of workers' wages, insisting that it is used the lowest minimum in arriving at 615,000 naira as the new minimum wage. Recall that organized labour comprising the Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) and the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria (TUC) pulled out the negotiation meeting last Wednesday when government offered 48,000 as new minimum wage. However, the chairman of the tripartite committee of the national minimum wage, Alhaji Bukar Goni, in a letter to organized labour calling a meeting to be held tomorrow, indicated that the government would shift ground and asked organized labour also to shift ground. Speaking to Vanguard in Abuja, the NLC head of Information and Public Affairs, Benson Opa, said organized labour will honour the invitation tomorrow, but advised the government to be serious. Government should be serious. He said, our expectation are that government should be serious this time around. We expect them to take more seriously the issue of the wages, or whether we accept 100 as insinuated in some quarters. He said, well, it will not be fair, and these are the reasons. The first reason is that when we demanded 650,000 naira, we broke that down. In fact, we used the barest minimum. For instance, we put accommodation at 40,000 naira. We also used feeding 500 naira. Tell me where you are going to get food of 500 naira with a family of 6. As I said, we use barest estimates, but beyond that, government hiked electricity tariff by 250% after we made our demand that has introduced costs and expenses. So if the government is serious, it should not be thinking about 100,000 naira. You know that when you create poor citizens, you create a poorer country. On his part, a member of the NLC delegation on the tripartite committee, Prof. Theophilus Undubaku, said, it will not be kind of the government to offer 100,000 naira. He said, I don't think 100,000 naira is kind. Is the kind of thing we want because it is far below our expectation. We will accept something that can at least keep somebody alive. I don't think 100,000 naira will keep a worker alive in the country, a man with a family of 6, because our computation is based on the size of a family. So if they come up with that kind of amount, I don't think we will appreciate it in the private sector. Even artisans are not taking 100,000 a month. Whether we accept, we will look what is the income and what they are collecting, what is available to the government. Because if the government is collecting 1 trillion naira, we cannot ask them to pay 2 trillion naira. We are responsible, but the same government should know that the people are suffering. They will have to agree with us that there is a crisis, that something needs to be done to create wealth, that something needs to be done for Nigeria to be a producing country and not to be a consuming country. Something needs to be done to reduce the cost of governance. We are supposed to be partners in governance. After all, we are the laborers. Why labor may not accept 100,000 naira? Asked to give a reason why labor may not accept 100,000, he said, if we see that 100,000 naira is affordable, if we see that they can afford more, we will reject it. They have to tell us why they cannot pay 615,000 naira. The onus is on them to tell us why. And then we will sit down and say, okay, we don't have the money, but we also know why we don't have the money, because Nigeria is a country that is naturally endowed, but something is wrong. How do you ensure you get money so that we come again in 2 years' time? You won't tell us the same story. What are you doing to create wealth? How are you going to partner with us to create wealth instead of being wasteful? How are you going to partner with us? So NLC, please look at it. We don't want to spend this percent on salary. We'll then sit down and ask, if you don't want to spend it on salary, you want to spend it by importing vehicles for customs when you have locally manufactured vehicles that won't cost capital flights. He however said if the government comes out with something relevant, organized labor will shift ground as requested by governor. This news that we have today is a very disheartening one, as government is not showing allegiance to the proposed new minimum wage by the NLC. But the NLC has refused to comply with the government to the new minimum wage of 60,000 naira, saying that it cannot keep a citizen alive. Here is the news for today. Do well to subscribe to the Cubana TV, like this post, comment on this post, and don't forget to share.